Welcome back, everybody, to our continuing coverage of the 2024 Demacia Cup quarterfinals. Thunder Talk taking a win over LNG. We talked Roodood about how Thunder Talk were probably the upsets coming into this one, specifically because they were not expected to necessarily win their group. Then they beat JDG. And of course, they're playing against LNG, who have players like Zika and Weiwei, who just made it to World's Quarters. But some really good macros specifically from Thunder Talk allowed them to take this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the macro early on is a great point to call out to begin with. They were moving 1xN around the map just that little bit better. You know, it was a trade, really. They traded power of 1xN over power over Haichao, and in the end, that ended up paying dividends. It meant that they were able to find a lot of picks. They got a really consistent DPS there as well. And then as they moved into the late game as well, they were really hot on punishing those mistakes that we saw from LNG. Okay, somebody's overextended down in that bot side. Let's pick them off. Let's make sure that we're finding that pick and finding that kill, giving ourselves the advantage as well. It's one thing to see somebody overextended on a bot wave. It's another thing to think, do we have the resources? Are we going to lose anything by going for this? Yes, no, weighing up all of those pros and cons, and then moving into a position where they can actually take that fight. So a really solid late game from TT as well. There were a few mid-game shakes, don't get me wrong. Like, they had a couple of fumbles around the Baron where one Baron they ended up just completely whiffing out on. They lost every single member and died, lost all of their Baron buffs, but then they had a fight a little bit later on around a Baron where, we all of a sudden, Keeper's Verdict knocks 2 people away. We've got a really nice way out. They get 5 people with the Baron completely out, and then are able to fight around the Dragon as well. And even though they don't get the Dragon, the Mountain Soul, we got to see sort of the lack of value if you aren't taking those solid 5 versus 5s, because as soon as all of those members were with Mountain Soul, they actually never fought 5v5 again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's credit to Beishuan, who, was our player of the game, even though it went to 1xN on the broadcast. But finding these picks, even though there was a lot of abilities and items picked up for LNG to allow them to try to get away from the idea of getting picked off, Thunder Talk were still able to find ways, and that, of course, revolves around their jungler. And just really cool stuff to see, in a world of so much roster mania, so many teams switching out everything, every split to try to make something work. Thunder Talk, a team that has never been at the top of the LPL standings, but, always have been kind of running together a core of players for the last couple of years. Hoya and Beishuan have been on this team. They're going to their 8th split together as teammates on this roster. They've been playing with 1xN for 3, Feather for 2 now. And so seeing that kind of be rewarded is a very fun thing to for Thunder Talk, especially up against LNG, who a lot of people consider to be some favorites coming in. But as we swap sides, we get into the draft for game number 2. Now remember, this is a true fearless format. So all 10 of those champions on the bottom of your screen will not be playable by either team. And that means that some things are going to come out that look very different, and we see the Victor getting picked up here by Thunder Talk here in the first rotation. That means LNG on blue side did not want to pick it up.
Yeah, red side Victor is not what was expected, I think, given the games that we saw yesterday. There was a lot of priority on, specifically game 1 blue side Victor was given over quite a couple of times. And then we've got LNG, who have opted into straight away B1 Cassante. We know exactly where this is going. We're expecting to see it in the top side. It suggests that there's an answer for LNG, right? They know that this Victor's going to get locked in. Haichao has the Akali locked and loaded and ready. So whether or not we see this Akali able to put down, say, Tiberion, is going to be the real question that we need to answer.
Yeah, a lot of very short range so far composition in terms of just the solo lanes for LNG. That can definitely be balanced out with what Photic decides to choose in that second phase. See a Garen hover right now for Thunder Talk, as it is a good answer to the Cassante, but instead we're going to see the Udyr. Not necessarily the highest priority in the top lane in recent patches, but going to be a pretty safe tank to play up there against the Cassante. Will be able to outduel him in the long run in an extended fight.
Yeah, and it's mainly a case of dissuasion as well. Udyr probably one of the few champions that can actually run away from a Cassante, so if he tries to get on top of you, there's the tools to keep yourself nice and safe. But with the Xin Zhao early on, I'm really a big fan of these really aggressive AD pairings when you've got a Victor. Victor's still a champion that doesn't do a right lot early on, can be very weak in those early game phases, But the power of new Victor, and we'll get onto this a little bit more, is that he scales a lot faster. So with the Victor or with the Xin Zhao by his side, it gives a little bit of power to that mid jungle 2 versus 2. Going into the second round of picks, though, expected to see a lot more focus down on that bot side. There is a small chance for this Victor to go into the bot side. I don't want to hold out too much hope, but there's an opportunity to flex it down into that bot lane. As we look, though, at the second round of bans, without any of those bot laners being taken off the board, with, still that range option for LNG decidedly missing.
Yeah, I mean, things like the Varus, which you typically associate with range, not going to be able to be played by Photic this time around because we are in that true fearless format. So now you're either, looking for something like a Jhin, which is able to do damage from afar a little bit, but is just low damage overall, or something a little bit further down the tier list that we don't see a ton of here from Photic.
You don't want to lock Jhin here versus Udyr versus Xin Zhao. You're just not going to have a good time. Jhin is unfortunately not the pick versus tanks or versus particularly those bruisers that can kill you in one rotation, aka the Xin Zhao. Lovers Duo, a very apt pairing if they decide to go for that. The Jinx locked in means that the early game skirmishing from 1xN specifically might be a little bit weaker. And with the Rakan on the flip side, LNG have an opportunity to try and punish, try to play aggressively. And with Feather as well, saving that counter pick for support, we'll have to wait and see what they lock in to try and answer whichever bot lane it is that LNG opt for.
It's going to be Corki locked in here for Photic. Used to be a big mid lane pick. Now, of course, has transitioned to the bot lane with some of those recent changes. Does entirely physical and true damage now. And a Volibear to round things out for Weiwei, sticking with his aggressive early game play style.
Yeah, so giving now a lot of power into that jungle role. Volibear, an exceptionally powerful early game champion. Certainly a pick that can try to go toe-to-toe with a Xin Zhao in those early stages. And again, bolsters up what is now very lethal mid-jungle 2 versus 2. If Hoya's not able to, or if rather Satab's not able to keep his distance from the Akali, from the Volibear, there's certainly going to be a little bit of danger. But I really like the point that you made early on, Grace, because it's held true. This LNG composition is very short range. The poke from a Corki, again, not what it was, is much more focused around getting spells around his auto attacks as well. So making sure that he can get in range to auto is going to be very important. And then outside of that, it's 4 melee champions for LNG versus what is going to be a very difficult team fight to get through, right? Yeah. You've got Victor Field going down with the Gravity Well, Flame Chompers to try and fight through. Crescent Guard from Xin Zhao is going to cause some disruption as well. Plus you're fighting through the Udyr with his double ulti, with his double R going out as well. That's a lot of ground level obstruction that is going to be difficult for LNG to try and chew through.
Yeah, I'm going to say it right now. Weiwei needs to enter like prime LeBron mode here in this early game, because if he doesn't have like 4 kills at the start of this game, it's going to be very hard for LNG to play this short range composition out against a Victor, a Jinx, and some really good setup as well on Thunder Talk's composition. Haichao's life is going to be miserable, especially as we enter those team fights. He tries to dash in there. There's immediately an Udyr stun. There's a Gravity Well. There's a Magnet Storm that comes up on top of him. Like, this Akali is going to have a very rough go of things. And so up to Weiwei to set up his carries to perform well. And then once we get to maybe those team fights, definitely looking at Photic on that Corki to really take the lead.
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy task either. It's certainly something that LNG are going to battle with, but I think that going into this second game, obviously we're expecting them to be 1-0 at this point. They aren't. It's Thunder Talk that found themselves game number 1. LNG are going to need to put the wheels in motion relatively early on. They've got the tools to be able to do it. They've got that really early game aggressive jungler with Weiwei, with the Volibear, an opportunity for him to try and find some advantages. And there is a very weak LNG early game. Victor, Jinx, 2 champions that look to scale and do lots of damage later on, be those hyper carries as you reach the 30, the 40 minute marker. But early on, you're not expecting it from them. It's not something that they are typically bound for super early doors. So for TT, their hope is that they can withstand that early game. Maybe that base one can do just a little bit of work and keep the team afloat and bridge them into a mid game where they've got some power.
And we definitely know the jungler is going to be high impact, just like they were in game number 1, but now a little bit more on the line here as LNG facing elimination as we head onto the Rift for game 2.
And a little bit less entertainment from the level 1 this time around, as well as last time we got to see a team invading onto the Blitzcrank, which obviously we don't get to see this time around with this true fearless, but no hard invades coming through on either side, just those trades of standard level 1 wards attempting to sniff out any potential jungle pathings early on. And more notably this time, Grapes, we haven't got any lane swaps as well. Last
Yep.
time we spent probably 15 minutes waiting for first blood just because everybody was in these janky lanes. But this time round, top lane is going to be top, bot lane is going to be bot, and Hoya's going to be causing a little bit of disruption for Weiwei.
Yeah, just a little annoying. Spots out that that is where Weiwei is going to be starting things off. Feather immediately starting with that, dismounted W, but gonna take a big chunk of damage in punishment. So right now, this bottom lane, not something that we're expecting to go super well here for Thundertalk, and they're already taking a beating.
Yeah, and TT, you can see here 1xN attempting to push for level 2, but he's so low already on HP.
The Grand Entrance connects, another stun onto Zhou, but Feather now below 200 HP. They still have not gotten the level 2 just yet, as they should be able to have big priority around that side of the map. So early on, much better start to this game here for LNG.
Yeah, apologize for the slight frames issues. Hopefully we'll try and get that fixed for you all as soon as possible, but XP attempting to be denied by LNG. I don't think they're going to be successful. They've reached that level 2 marker, which is now very important, and they can attempt to zone away. Looks like 1xN is actually just going to go for a base already. Seeing this, LNG should just look to hard push this, crash that third wave, find themselves a reset, get as much gold out of it as possible, and if Otic comes back to lane with that tier already stacking, that's going to be the goal for them.
Yeah, we apologize again for the brief technical delay. I think we're heading into a quick pause just to get that all settled down, and hopefully things should be working out a little bit better now. So didn't miss too much. It is 1xN and Feather going back to base, but I want to focus on this mid lane a little bit, Roodood, because when you look at this new Victor champion, the first thing you say, oh, ultimate change, it's a little bit more strong, but there were a lot of other changes to this kit that changes his identity. What can you tell me about the differences between Victor now and what we saw from him specifically here in this early game?
Okay, so I'll go through the important changes. Now, we're going to use the term Victor Bucks as currency, if Weiwei lets me, because he is sniffing around mid lane right now, as Haichao fairly low.
We can get back to it, because right now, Haichao and Weiwei looking for save tap here. The gravity well comes down, but the shuriken flip should be available here for Haichao, but a nice follow-through from Thundertalk, Beishuan and Feather there to make sure that their mid laner survives.
Okay, so Zaytab relatively low on mana here, so the kill threat not particularly present, and this bot side as well is not looking good for Thundertalk either. Trying to get this wave crash is going to be opportunity or priority really #1. But to go back to our Victor talk, Zaytab on this Victor, the champion itself used to get 25 stacks per takedown. Every 100 stacks you would get an evolve. Now it's only 20 per takedown, so kill or assist, but you also get double from cannon minions. So you get 10 for every cannon minion that goes down. It means if you're CSing your cannons, you're getting your upgrades a lot faster because cannon minions are a lot more frequent than takedowns, especially in competitive. It means that fighting around a Victor early on, not as powerful as it was. Also, they changed what his evolves did. Now, the laser, still the same. You still get a second pass through. You still become Wave Clear King. You're happily able to do that, but you don't actually get the slow on your abilities until you evolve your W now, which is obviously the third evolution that you tend to take as a Victor. So you don't have that slow, that inbuilt Rylai's almost to your abilities until you have those 300 stacks. And then the most important change, almost the thing that makes him such a super scaler, is that he has an evolve on his ultimate now as well, which is that every time you get a takedown, it increases in size and refreshes the duration just a little bit.
All right, I think I got all my notes down. I'm gonna hopefully remember all that by the time we're at least by the time the new year starts, right? Like, there's a lot of changes to take into account. Long story short, the ultimate is definitely a big factor, but fighting around this Victor becomes less important, and it's more about picking up those early canyon minions and making sure that you get your stacks that way.
Yeah.
While we were talking about all that, 1xN and Feather having a terrible time down here bot.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that they have now got a wave crashing into them is quite nice because it means that 1xN will be able to find some form of farm anyway, and you can see he's actually has actually gone for a second recall early on. Sometimes you will not recall once before 5 minutes, but they've actually taken 2 resets, so they're going to be a little bit behind in that experience game. Picked up a Cull and a Dagger is, not the fighting power that you're looking for from your Jinx early on, but this is exactly what LNG need. They need to be finding these advantages early on, and this is purely 2 versus 2, purely laning almost. The fact that Beishuan had to come down and force the crash for the Thundertop bot lane, the fact that he's even hovering now just to add a little bit of presence is giving LNG so much time. It's giving Weiwei this chance now to take the Void Grubs on the top side. Yes, it's going to be traded out for the Dragon, but if you're a snowballing team, you want those void grubs because you're going to snowball significantly when you get more gold from plates, which means that you can take turrets, which means that you can get your items faster, and the whole snowball sequence becomes a lot easier with void grubs than it does an extra 3% out of combat movement speed.
Definitely. So Photic and Zhuo able to use their pressure to not even have to go up to the top side to secure those grubs. They're able to use all their power, all their lane presence to just allow Weiwei to take it himself. Of course, the flip side is Thundertalk picking up this first dragon, but if you are LNG, definitely enjoy a little bit as Zhuo takes away the Scuttle Crab as well, and now Weiwei actually burning the flash to try to stun up Beishuan, who has to use his flash in response. LNG playing with that ultimate advantage on their jungler, trying to make a play.
Yeah, and I think that both of those jungler flashes will amount to be sort of inconsequential. I don't think they're going to matter too much that they both just flashed there. We don't have either objective up for a good amount of time. Going into your lanes is not the most difficult thing in the world. So using flash to gap close is just not going to be a possibility anymore. The thing that I always get worried about is when Xin Zhao's don't have flash, that they don't have an escape tool anymore. Usually they use it to be aggressive anyway because you're Xin Zhao, you should be using your flash aggressively, but by all means, if you're going to get caught out, using the flash defensively is probably the one use case for Xin Zhao. And now that option isn't open to them, but it's also worth mentioning, we talked about the scaling aspect of TT and their composition scaling very well into that late game. The champions for LNG, the Corki specifically, will do good damage. The reason we say that this composition will struggle later on is because finding access to that damage is going to be a lot more difficult. We already highlighted all of the obstructions that TT are going to be looking for, but Weiwei going with a little bit of a different take with the tier as well. There's going to be an added element of Volibear safety as we move a little bit later into the game.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I'm assuming that's a Cosmic Drive probably going to come through here for Weiwei. The question is, like, what is that tier going into? Do you build Archangels?
Has to be Fimbulwinter.
It has to be Fimbulwinter, right?
If it's not Fimbulwinter, we need to be investigating Weiwei a little bit.
Yeah, because it's not like Volibear has a mana issue, so he's definitely going for a tier item. He's not just going to hold it in his inventory. I imagine it's the Fimbulwinter, getting a little bit of extra shielding and things like that while still having the damage of the Cosmic Drive. Speaking of, now has level 7, invading onto Beishuan's blue buff, as just continuing to play with the fact that Photic and Zhuo are constantly able to garner pressure here against 1xN and Feather.
This is the power that just a winning 2 versus 2 can grant you, right? Like, look at how much now experience is being denied from 1xN once again. Blue buff secured by Weiwei. I think that must have been with Sky Splitter, because maybe Sky Splitter flash to give vision, smite even. But 1xN luckily able to collect the majority of this wave, which is quite nice, but was going to be losing out on a significant amount of that had the wave been, or the fight in the jungle, taken any longer. And the experience advantage, the gold advantage, it's all starting to rack up for LNG, even though once again we aren't seeing any kills come through this early game. There's a small advantage as Beishuan is looking for Weiwei.
Oh, this time he wins the smite fight.
He misses.
Stormbringer does not go over the wall. Unfortunate for Weiwei, but he will go down. Kill going to the victor.
Yeah, and that's plus 20 stacks, so that's going to be E-Evolve already for Satab. That now means that his mid lane experience going to be quite a lot easier. Obviously, versus an Akali, you're very happy pre-level 6. Once you hit level 6, you start to be scared again. But now you've got this upgraded laser, you can clear every single wave on repeat, and you're absolutely fine just to, hit the couple of melee creeps, clear the rest of the wave, and that's job done. Haichao, though, CSing very well. You will typically see this for your mid laners who are just so focused on not trading. He had so little HP for the majority of this laning phase, but it's because he's constantly sacrificing HP to try and get that CS, able to play on the very edge of what Victor's early game damage does and make sure that he never goes down, but also doesn't miss any CS. Up at that 101 mark already. Storm Surge finished very early on, doesn't even opt into any form of boots, but if he gets on top of a carry, they will get popped very quickly.
Now, do you think the new cope thing here for people playing against the Victor is, oh guys, I died, but it's fine. It's only 20 stacks.
It's only 20, guys. He's not getting 25.
Yeah, he could have got a cannon minion instead. But
he could have got 2 cannon minions instead.
I'm actually getting him a big advantage here.
Okay, big fight? Not big fight.
Got our second spot of grubs. Weiwei still having power over here, as now this time Photic and Zhuo come up to the top side of the map to help secure this. So you mentioned how getting these 6 grubs could be very important for LNG to help continue their snowballing, but right now, after that first blood, it's actually Thundertalk with the gold lead, and Beishuan maybe looking for something as Feather and Hoya in the area as well.
Okay, so Satab was getting a little bit of free time down on that bot side. It took the teleport from Zika to make sure that this Victor wasn't just getting free farm, free gold from those plates, and Zika might fancy this 1v1.
Oh yeah, finds the Pathmaker as well as that ultimate. Satab could be in some trouble here. He takes that down about 400 HP. Zika looking for the final kill, flashes, but it will be matched here by Satab to make sure the Victor survives. Satab living to see another day.
Okay, just barely there, makes it out alive, and looks like Beishwan here going to be able to collect that wave again. Apologize for the visual issues. It looks like we've skipped back just a little bit to make sure that we are all okay. Once we've got some updates on these issues, we will be sure to inform you. But for the time being, just going to make sure that everything is nice and safe, make sure that everything is looking as good as possible, because trying to get a glimpse in that 1v1 was proving quite difficult.
Yeah, I mean, again, just a disclaimer to everybody here. This is a community-run stream run by a lot of really hard-working and talented production staff that have been able to get this together. We're using the Huya feed from the LPL actually directly to commentate over this. But that's why you're hearing some of the Chinese casters in the background. You see some of the Chinese assets when we're in-game. But we hope that you are able to stay with us and everything. Big shout out to Chris Sunga and the graphics team as well. I mean, all the assets that we've been able to get here with Friend or Foe on our English community side of things have also just been incredible.
Yeah, and it looks like there was some semblance of a fight. We've come back into live, and Hai Chao is 2-0 now on this Akali. They take the turret down on the bot side, turret on the top side also gone down. So a big advantage seemingly has happened for LNG in just that small pause there to give them a decent advantage. 1.4k up in the mid lane, 1.4k up in the bot lane as well. So LNG immediately off to the races here. That snowball that we were talking about needed to sort of roll down that hill has begun its motion.
Yeah, that is a big fight that happened for LNG. It looks like it might have been Beishwan and Satab that took the brunt of things here. As ThunderTalk's looking to get back into things now as they start up this second dragon. Remember that LNG, after picking up the grubs on the top side, have full control of that area of the map. But if ThunderTalk are able to pick this up, that will be a 2-0 dragon score lead. It means they could potentially snowball their way towards a soul. But they now are finding themselves down about 4,000 gold, which is a pretty significant margin. It means the LNG early game comp is doing their job.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the goal really for LNG, right? On an elimination game coming into this series as favourites as well. They would have been anticipated to be in this position anyway, had this been game number one, and this would have been fairly run-of-the-mill. But that's obviously not off the back of what was a banger 50-minute game number one to set us up for what could be a very late night for you, Grapes, as the rest of LNG continue to try and assert their pressure across this top side, stealing away the red buff now from ThunderTalk. And with LNG already so far ahead, this natural progression of stealing away camps is really all they've got left. They've taken the tier 1 turrets in top and in bot. Final job is to try and find that mid lane tier 1 turret as well. I think we're going to get a replay of what happened down on this bot side. This was after Zika went for the 1v1 with
looks like we have
Satab.
actually two kind of situations up here where LNG looked to go for a play on the top side, and then Hai Chao just teleports down here and makes quick work of both Beishwan and Satab.
Yes, I agree. That is what happened. The TP from Hai Chao, hey, very solid. And Hoya came up here as well. I think this is where Wei Wei probably takes out Feather under the turret. Yes.
All right, well, there you go. That's your situation. That's what you missed on Glee. We're 4,000 gold up now here for LNG at the 15-minute mark. They've definitely grasped a firm control of this one, specifically onto their main carries. Hai Chao and Photic, each the ones to pick up the gold. That is very big for them in terms of how they want to snowball this and take it to game 3.
Yeah, very important that they find these advantages nice and early. They've already got themselves the Rift Herald as well, so that tier 1 turret, if it wasn't already taken down, which it is, would have been sort of mincemeat already. This now means though that they can look to try and break open a side lane turret as well, which has got a lot of gold built into it. It's effectively 2 kills worth of gold if you can take down one of these tier 2 turrets in bot or in top. So with that Rift Herald and with such an advantage as well, I anticipate that they try and look for that. Drake not spawning for another 2.5 minutes, nearly 3 as well. So there's going to be a decent while whilst LNG have got a lot of the map to play with and decide what they want to do. Really, at this point, it should be focus as many of the camps as possible and just choke Beishwan out of this game. He's already down 1 level, but you shouldn't really be giving access to any camps when you've got this sort of a lead.
Yeah, already have all 3 of those outer turrets, which just makes this invade job even easier. Beishwan now down about 4 camps worth, despite having a pretty good go of things in the early stages of this. Rift Herald picked up here by LNG. His Pai Chao sends it not towards the tower, but instead on the defensive. He saw 3 of those guys and it's like, all right, I'm out of here.
Yeah, as soon as the Flame Chompers go down, this is the power of Jinx versus a Rift Herald. If you charge it into the turret, the Flame Chompers actually catch you. Well, they're getting top tier 2 and a big fight top side.
Feather with the Magnus Storm, but it gets buffered by the ultimate of Weiwei. Nice escape here from the Volley Bears. Now Hoya getting targeted underneath his own tower. Zika able to land that 3rd knock up here with the Q, not going to be able to find anything else. Just waiting for that next wave to get escorted underneath, but with Satab here, ton of wave clear, that Victor going to make sure that tower survives.
Yeah, and should be on his 2nd evolution by now, so has a little bit of movement speed from the Q as well. You can use that to kite out these melee champions quite significantly. So, versus an Akali, maybe it's not as easy when she's got 3 dashes plus, targeted E on you if she lands it. So, the kiting away from the volley bear, the Cassante, don't get me wrong, very, very useful. So Satab will be feeling quite positive about his position. Like that he's going for sort of double tank shred as well with the Blackfire Torch and what looks to be a Liandry's coming through as that 2nd item. Because trying to get through Zika, trying to get through Weiwei, that's not going to be easy.
Definitely not. So the burn definitely helps here for Satab, but and just in general, the added scaling of this Victor Jinx is what we have to continue to focus on here for ThunderTalk, because even though the gold lead is pretty significant for LNG, the later we get into this, the less and less that gold obviously ends up meaning. If we continue to get more items into the carries, we talk about how this scaling composition for ThunderTalk really can take over. But right now, definitely LNG favored.
Absolutely. And this is one of those games where it is literally never over until LNG have taken the Nexus, because if they take down triple inhibs, 2 Nexus turrets, but don't close out the game, that's, don't get me wrong, a very positive position to be in, but that's also a lot of gold that is starting to get funneled into what is a Jinx and a Victor. So definitely going to be a difficult situation if they find themselves in that spot. ThunderTalk trying to defend their tier 2 turrets, which is proving much more difficult than they might have first anticipated, as LNG, good rotations again through this bot side. They've set up all their vision in the bot side jungle. They've got Drake spawning in 10 seconds, so they take the tier 2 turret, they move down into the bot side and continue by taking that dragon, and now they're just slowly getting more and more advantages, increasing that gold lead, increasing their dominance over the map, and are constantly able to force this advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Even though since we came back from that break, the kills, nobody has gone down in terms of kills. The 3,000 gold lead became 4,000, 4,000 became 4.5. Now we're getting close to 5 at this point in time, as the dragon will also get picked up by Weiwei and LNG. So they're doing a really good job at snowballing. That is what their composition has to do, though, and so they cannot let up. They have to continue this unrelenting pressure.
Now we see Zhuo here just darting around on that top side, looking for a little bit of some. 1xN does manage to find that red buff, as Feather could have potentially sniped it away. LNG, though, focus on this topside turret. They're starting to set up that vision. Whoa!
He just face-checked 4 members of ThunderTalk, but he's able to escape with the quickness, and here comes the teleport. Zika looking to enter the fray, try to go all out here onto the entire backline. Beishwan already going down. That's 2 for 0 with Feather falling, and LNG in the enemy jungle take down 2 kills for free.
And the fact that Zhuo lives there is absolutely crazy. As you say, face checks 4 people and then re-engages as well. Decides that he's not done just yet. Finds a couple of kills with the help of Zika. Hai Chao coming in as well. And that kind of speaks to the wallet diff currently that LNG are battling with. They're able to take those, honestly, bad face checks, but because gold lead, they become good. Right, walking into 4 people should never be good. You should never be leaving this position as the Rakan. But it's a great flash as well. He gets over the Flame Chompers, navigates those perfectly, and is able to get out as well.
Yeah, and Beishwan just is a champion on the Jin Zhao, has to go in. Not really a ton of escape potential. So as soon as he dashes in out of that Rakan, it's kind of game over for him, as Zhuo able to get out of there very admirably. So the 5,000 gold lead has become 6.5, as LNG continuing their pressure here and trying to send us to a Game 3 in the Demacia Cup quarterfinals.
And the question now is when Baron, because LNG are far enough ahead so that they can probably just start this up 5v5, look for a turn, find a couple picks, rinse and repeat. I think the good thing for them is that they've already got a lot of this topside control put down. Zhuo is there. Looks like they want to take this tier 2 turret on the top side before they start focusing their eyes on the big purple worm. But they've got 2.5 items finished for Photic, 2 items finished for Haichao. Damage isn't particularly a concern for them. Maybe Weiwei needs to finish off his Fimbulwinter and, get it fully upgraded as a fully stacked tier. But other than that, the next logical progression for LNG is to try and take that Baron. They're nowhere near a soul. It should just be, okay, when can we find the objective that's going to end this game?
Yeah, this is a great spike right now for LNG to start this up. I would imagine that should be their priority. There's not 2 items on 1xN just yet. You have 2 items on basically everybody on your side of things. And so, but imagine that becomes a big focus here for LNG. But right now, going to instead kind of be a 1-3-1 setup with both Zika and Haichao in the side lanes, getting a little bit more gold, trying to potentially play the waiting game a little bit. But the longer you wait, the closer you get to 1xN having that second item and then more.
Yeah, and with all that said, this bot lane is a complete stalemate, so there's no advantage being drawn out there. Zika's just catching waves, Hoya's just throwing them right back at him. It's not anything that's amounting to an advantage down on that bot side, so both of these top laners going blow for blow, really. Nobody's going to kill one another either. That top lane, though, definitely a lot more threatening. Haichao can focus Satab and can probably take him out under the turret, so it's probably going to be costing Satab just a couple of creeps here and there. And finally, the question has been answered. When Baron, Grapes, 22.5 minutes.
And it looks like not a ton of vision there for Thundertalk. The blue are going to spot them out. They do this super fast, but that's because not the full squad has been deployed to take damage onto this purple worm. Right now, Zhou doing a good job spotting out everybody on Thundertalk. We still have Hoya on the bottom side, but he does have teleport as Zika now takes control over mid. There's a TP. The TT definitely know that this is happening and want to try and put a stop to it, but that seems to be all the LNG wanted to do. Burn that teleport and immediately peel off and go back to trying to find pressure here in the topside jungle of TT. Zhuo once again going in rather aggressively as we have another slight
Big
delay
pause
here on our screen. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen right now.
Yeah, it's
just waiting. Okay, we're gonna go back just a little bit to make sure we're all cut up to speed. Here we go. Zhuo misses that grand entrance. Here comes that big Magnus Storm, though, from Feather. And it should be at least 1 kill going in favor of Thundertalk in that fight around the top side. Really sorry about all these delays, about some of the pauses that we're seeing on here. Kind of out of our control, I believe, just in terms of the production side.
Very tense situation on that top side. There's a really tricky position that we would think Thundertalk find themselves in, but credit to them, they are consistently looking to try and find these fights. They're consistently looking to pick up kills where possible and make this game as difficult as possible for LNG. One of the old adages that I've always been a fan of is we may not win this game, but how can we make it as hard as possible for the enemies to win? Right? How do we make it so that we lose in the longest possible time, draw this game out for as much as possible? And this is still a best-of series at the end of the day, so inflicting as much mental damage as possible is certainly something that has value in a BO3. Yeah.
I mean, that's one way you could put it, right? And also, just the fact that if Thundertalk extend the game, it makes their champion stronger and allows for them to maybe get back into this one a little bit. But still some short, we'll get back into this hopefully soon. Don't know exactly what's going to happen in that team fight. A little surprised that LNG pulled off the Baron, but they seem very confident that as soon as they burn that teleport, they could win a fight and then take the Baron without any chance of a steal.
The thing is that now they've pulled that Baron or pulled that TP, it changes the entire lane assignment for Thundertalk. It means that the Victor now has to answer the Cassante, which is a lot scarier because the Cassante has kill threat onto the Victor. The opposite is, the case for the top side as well, that the Udyr can't wave clear nearly as easily versus the Akali, as we are panning back in to a time, I believe, earlier. So this is all repeat of what we've seen.
So the teleport comes in, and then we're going to see Zhuo go in onto Beishuan. He's not going to land anything, and then gets in a little bit of trouble here. So here we go. We're going to try this one more time here. The charm comes out, and again, Feather with a big ultimate to at least take down Zhuo. But Haichao now in here, lands that Shuriken flip, will pick up one. Hoya goes down as well. It's a double kill for the Akali, and LNG go 2 for 1, but both supports do fall.
And importantly, it's Hoya that goes down as well. So there's still damage for TT if they decide to try and stop this Baron, as it gets started up by LNG, they've still got a lot of HP. Haichao can base, can teleport back in. Beishwan's got to make the long run back from base as well. And trying to face check this is going to be very difficult as well. Zhuo back up and alive. Feather there as well. Deep TP comes in. Thundertalk, they're going to have to give this.
Yeah, and Beishwan, 4 levels down on Haichao specifically, that Kali versus Jin Zhao. Not going to be able to find too much. We're going to skip ahead, I think, a little bit here just to get ourselves up to speed as LNG now with that Baron have a really firm hold on this game. You see the gold lead has expanded to about 9,000 as they're going to even up the dragon count as well.
Yeah, and at this stage, it is a case of... It should be a case of when, not if. 9,000 is a pretty big benchmark, and the composition that they have is really good at snowballing, is very solid so far from what we've seen. Finding advantages, continuing to push those, and a Fed Akali for this composition is absolutely important. It's very imperative to how they're going to try and take those leads, trying to continue to push this game towards its natural end.
Okay, we're back in 25 minutes. Baron buff still available for another 2 minutes here for LNG. Can only imagine that another fight went their way, probably around that Baron. And right now, with the gold at about 9,000 in their favor, they're looking very good in terms of trying to snowball this lead into a Game 2 victory. And hopefully they'll be able to do so in this next minute and 47.
Yeah, odds are that we are going to Game 3 here, folks. Going to keep it a complete stack with you. One of the things, Victor, very good at wave clearing, but Baron buff pretty much stops all forms of wave clear being as effective, so you need to put Jinx and Victor both in the same lane to answer those waves.
Okay, Zhuo did go in, again, very aggressively. It seems to be a common trend here for this Rakan. And we'll see if we can get that sorted out again. It's a... very sorry about all this. Yeah, big shout out to Casual Cutie on production who is trying their best to get this all sorted out. But we'll have updates for you as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, and I mean, Zhuo going in has been the trend, but it still gives them success, it's worth saying. So it's, okay, great, you've lost your life as the Rakan, but what has it got you? Well, last fight it earned you 2 kills on an Akali. This time round, we may yet see a lot more. When they're expending so many resources to try and just take down a Rakan, it means that they don't have those resources for the important people, like the Akali, like the Cassante, who are going to cause real problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've gone a little bit further in, but I think this kind of goes to show us. Every time we cut back, it's LNG getting a little bit further and a little bit further ahead. Things are going very well for them right now in this one. As the Baron buff still up for another couple minutes, we see a 3-for-1 team fight was taken in favor of LNG, as just Haichao was the one to go down.
I mean, that's a worthy pickup. I'm not sure who will have got the shutdown. Would like to think that it's Satab that picks up that kill, because if he gets that was a lot of gold sat on the Akali's head. So, good opportunity for him to get a little bit of gold back into this game. And again, we'll re-emphasize this. This game isn't over until it ends. Until the Nexus turrets and the Nexus itself have fallen, there's always that small part of me that's going to think, okay, can Jinx, can Victor battle their way through this?
Yeah, we have I think a replay going to go through here of just that last fight. But I mean, just firm control from LNG overall in that second game. Like we talked about how worried we were about this composition and how it could fare if we got to a kind of an even state of the game later on. But they never let that even state happen, because from minute one, it was way on the volley bear, as well as just the lane prowess from Voduk and Zhuo in this Corki lane as well. Just really doing well for them.
It's good to see that people are using marksman and the slight counters that you can have within there, right? Jinx isn't a pick that can do much early on, doesn't have that dueling power. The Corki absolutely is. So you can get the power really from the Corki early on. You've got Rakan, who's doing quite significant amounts as well with his laning presence. You can get good knockups, the heal as well that comes through. Definitely something that's very powerful. And it's also, worth highlighting that when you are so far ahead, that pushing can, finding those advantages can be a little bit difficult, but this is the hallmark of what is clearly a very solid team, that they're able to find all of these advantages.
Yeah, we'll take a quick look at this replay here. Look like Zika had a little bit of a grand escape, and Haichao going very far forward, and I think now we're going to see a little bit of just that wallet diff here.
Yeah, and then from here, okay, a good Q3 from Zika catches out 1xN, and he's forced to flash away, means that he's now can't DPS as much has to reposition, is losing time on that, and then nobody actually goes down. And as we would have anticipated, it looks as though we've had LNG take their first win and tie up the scores.
Yeah, so 1-1 is what it is. A long Thunder Talk and a very short dominant win here for LNG. Kind of goes to how both those compositions wanted to play in that first game. Again, we sincerely apologize for some of the freezes and things that we had on our side of things. We're going to make sure to do our best to get those issues as close to fix as possible as we continue throughout the day. Again, we're trying a lot of new things here on the LPL English stream. Fully community run broadcast and everything like that. And so we appreciate you sticking with us and you know, it's been a lot of fun so far.
You know what this means though, Grapes? So we get game 3 and then we get our third game.
Yes.
And I think that game that we got to see was a bit of a testament to what anticipations were, what expectations were as well, right? The LNG came into this series, they were the expected favourites, and yes, they've drafted an early game composition versus a late game composition. They've executed on that quite well, but that's kind of what you anticipate from a better team, is that they are able to get those advantages earlier on, that they're able to find the lead in those early game phases and then snowball them quite naturally to their end. It again reinforces the fact that the game one was atypical. We weren't expecting to see that, and maybe the cause of that was those lane swaps, that all of those advantages came from the lane swaps. They were able to cause so much chaos, and you know that at the end here, with LNG finding what is a very satisfying gold graph, that this is maybe the team that we're anticipating for this tournament.
Yeah, this is the more normal gold graph that you see. Not like that one that we saw in game number 1. It's a big lead, a big fight won at about the 11-12 minute mark. And then it kind of snowballs from there. Big shout out to Fodic as well, who ended up doing the most damage in the game. I think made a lot of sense. And honestly, wouldn't be surprised if like almost half of that was just at the start. You know, the levels 1 through 6, because they were raining havoc onto 1xN and Feather in that early game.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's the power of that early 2 versus 2 where, and it's nice to see as well that it wasn't just, oh, a jungler ganks bot lane and now the bot lane is over. It was just laning prowess and the power that Rakan Corki have versus what is objectively just a weaker lane, and the fact that they take advantage of that as well. So shout out to the Photix robot lane for making the most of that and getting those advantages where they are. I will say, so far through this series, standout performer for me, or at least subverting what I was anticipating coming into this, has been Hoya. I think that in that final, in the second game, was, you know, doing everything he was supposed to on the Udyr. There's not a lot of agency that you get as that champion, especially versus a Cassante, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. And in game number 1 as well, had some good picks for an area of the map that we were anticipating would be a bit of a weak spot for TT. It's great to see that Hoya is holding his own as best as possible.
Especially against someone like Zika. I mean, always a really cool thing. Of course, didn't come up with that win, but it all comes down to this final map. Our last game of this first quarterfinal. We're going to step away for a bit, try to make sure that we get all those technical issues under control, and be right back with you for the final game of this quarterfinal series.